watching the news with me, Tanvi Shukla, and before we get to the day's top stories, here are the headlines. Shield the corrupt and gag the media seems to be the mantra of Rajasthan government. State tables bill that gives 180 days immunity to public servants from any investigation or even media coverage. Editors Guild writes to Vasundhara Raje, demands that the harmful ordinance that gags the media be withdrawn immediately. Two instances that prove how unsafe Mumbai locals are. Pervert flashes at a woman and masturbates in the adjacent coach while a 14-year-old has to jump out of a train after another pervert enters the ladies' compartment.
मुझे 1 करोड़ की ऑफर दी, आज 10 लाख रुपया मुझे रोकड़ा दे दिया और कल जो पार्टनर का प्रोग्राम है इसमें स्टेज ऊपर मैं आऊँ, उसके बाद दूसरा पैसा कल देने का उसके वायदा किया है.
Explosive charge by Hardik Patel's aide Narendra Patel claims BJP offered him bribe to switch sides. Big political fight breaks out ahead of polls. Almost 50 days on, there is yet to be any arrest in the Gauri Lankesh murder case, where the government has decided to cut down on the investigating team's strength. Is the Lankesh murder probe headed to nowhere? Marcel controversy gets bigger. Actor Vijay gets booked. His fans come out on streets to protest while the film fraternity slams BJP leader for giving it a communal twist. Mumbaikas get ready for a Goa-style beach experience. State government sets up a beach shack policy to boost tourism. But straight on our top focus, the Supreme Court has agreed to re-examine its own verdict on standing and playing national anthem in cinemas. A bench comprising of Chief Justice Deepak Mishra and Justice A.M. Khanwilkar and D.Y. Chandrachud indicated that it will re-examine its order of December 2016, by which the playing of the anthem was made mandatory in theatres before the screening of the movie. Justice Chandrachud, in fact, also observed, why should we have to wear our patriotism on our sleeves? Meenakshi is with us on the phone line. Meenakshi, some very, very interesting observations made by the top court as they decided to take up this case again.
Well, absolutely, Tanvi, and also such a departure from tradition, because our viewers will recall it is the top court of this country that we are talking about, and it has shown an indication as to how it is willing to correct itself, perhaps in the light of new evidence that emerges, because traditionally the Supreme Court does not judge its own judgments. But like you rightly pointing out, this is an order of the Supreme Court which was passed about a year or so back, in which the playing of national anthem was made mandatory in movie theatres, and the Apex Court has today agreed to re-examine its own order, and the Government of India has time till January to revert. When the Supreme Court originally today pulled up the government asking as to why does it want for the Supreme Court to even enter this realm. If the government indeed wants for national anthem to be played compulsorily in public places, then it should go ahead and bring about a law to that effect. And interestingly, during the course of these arguments today, we heard some very terse observations pertaining to what patriotism should indeed comprise and look like. And in the course of that, we heard as to how, like you were again rightly pointing out, Honorable Justice Chandrachud making this observation that why should people indeed have to go ahead and bear their sense of nationalism on their sleeves, and indeed in cinema halls that too, because that is a place where people come in for undiluted entertainment. And the Honorable Judge of the Supreme Court also wondered as to where will such moral policing indeed stop. So very terse observations going out from the Supreme Court, putting the Modi government on the back foot.
So what is the way forward now, Meenakshi? Is there already a date for the next hearing? What happens from here on?
Well, Tanvi, the Government of India has to revert in January. That is when the government will come back to the Apex Court and inform whether indeed it intends to go about to bring a legislation on its own if it wants to have the playing of national anthem made compulsory in public places. But that apart, the indication of the insight that
Hello?
the three-judge bench
Hello?
provided.
RMI.
Okay. All right, Meenakshi, stay on with me. I believe we've got Mr. Arima Sundaram, Senior Advocate of the Top Court, with us on the phone line. Good evening, Mr. Sundaram. Thanks for speaking with us here on Mirror Now. I just want to first begin by understanding what's your own view. Here is the Top Court that will now look into its own verdict when it comes to mandatory playing of national anthem. And there have been very interesting observations made by Justice Chandrachud on the need for people to wear their patriotism on their sleeves, or the fear that if they don't, they may be tagged as anti-national.
Look, I think the entire issue really arose because there was an order passed. It wasn't a final judgment of the Supreme Court. There was a move then to recall the order. That was the application which was filed, saying that, look, it's a bit impractical to have the national anthem being played at the cinema theatres, especially because what was, I think, really urged was that there is a policy and there are various enactments which deal with respecting the national anthem, national flag, and everything else. And the government itself has guidelines regarding these. So the application really said that it's really a legislative function. So when there's a policy already governing it, should the court really be passing directions? And the argument taken was, by the petitioners, was that under our fundamental duties, one of the duties is to respect the national flag and the national anthem. And therefore, the argument put forward was this is nothing but enforcing a sign of respect. I think that is when the issue arose as to whether this was, first of all, whether a fundamental duty is actionable through, claiming, unlike a fundamental right, or unlike a directive principle. A fundamental duty is only a guideline. It's not really a mandate to any citizen. So there the question arose as to, look here, well, all right, does that mean that the only way you can show respect is by having it being played in theatres? Because the basic issue which arose was that when a person goes for entertainment to the theatre, it's one thing to say that the national anthem played at events, government events, at events where there's a lot of public involvement. For example, even an international sports meet, a case of, let's say, an international cricket match, something where you're standing up for your country and your nation. Now, if you're going to a movie or you're going to a circus or you're going to a play, you're going only for pure entertainment purposes. And at that time, there is no need to impose on a person the necessity of having to have the national anthem and to stand up for it, nor should the theatres be forced to play such a national anthem. And I think that is when Justice Chandrachud also made his statement saying patriotism needn't be worn on its sleeve. And that's the statement I think you're referring to, which yes. I think is really quite an apt statement, in my considered view, to have made today. I think that was quite a right statement.
Do you believe the government should even look at coming out with a law if they deem fit, or should it just be left to citizens to decide to what extent they want to display this kind of patriotism?
Fair point. You're absolutely right. It is a legislative function. It's an executive function. It's always open for the government to mandate that, look, we want, for the purpose of the sovereignty and the unity of India, to, let's say, have the national anthem sung in schools in the morning, or to have it sung on other occasions. Of course, the government can do that. And the government, therefore, said, look, this is a governmental function. And that's what the Attorney General said. He said this is something which is an executive issue, and the government will consider whether or whether not to have any such rules. So leave it to the government to decide. So the court then said that, recorded that and said, well, the government will take a decision on this and what is to be done. That was the final order passed.
Yes.
That the government will take a decision, and then the matter has been reposted for the government to revert to the court with what it intends to do.
Yes, we'll find out what the government thinks in January, I believe. Mr. Sundaram, always a pleasure to have you on our show. Thank you for speaking to us in Mirror Now. I believe we've also got Mr. Rajesh Gihani, an advocate, on the phone line. He has a slightly contrarian view. Mr. Gihani, where do you stand on this debate that's been reignited because of what happened in the top court today?
Basically, I feel that playing of national anthem in a theatre, it actually doesn't amount to wearing your patriotism on your sleeves, like it is said. And I beg to differ on that ground.
Okay, but we were just speaking with Mr. Arima Sundaram as well, and the point that's also being made is, do you need to make it mandatory? Should this be your only test of patriotism, and should the government or the judiciary decide on such matters?
Playing of national anthem in theatres being mandatory is a debatable issue, but then again, it will be for the government to decide whether to do it or not to do it. At home, most of us are believers. We do bow our head every day before our gods, and there is no harm in paying respect to the nation wherever we go for entertainment or whatever matches. Like Mr. Sundaram said,
yes,
we go to matches, we see the winning team's anthem being played. So there's no harm in it. It's not amounting to wearing patriotism on your sleeves.
No, there's no harm in showing your patriotism at all. Should it be mandatory is the big debate that's been reignited. But thank you, Rajesh Kihani, for speaking with us here on Mirror Now. Let's move on to the other big story. It's close to 50 days since journalist Gauri Lankesh was murdered, and it appears that the special investigative team probing the case has probably hit a dead end. The team that had close to 200 members has now shrunk to 1/4 of that size. Shrija is joining us, and she's got more details. Shrija, what's the rationale that the government seems to be giving at this point? Why have they cut down and downsized this team?
Well, it's going to clearly be more than 50 days is what we're given to understand since Gauri Lankesh was murdered. If you really remember, Tanvi, just 2 days after this murder, the SIT team, the Special Investigative Team, was constituted to, in fact, look into this particular murder. Of course, initially there was this 21-member coterie. Then later it, in fact, swelled to almost 67. And finally, we did see a couple of weeks later, it was almost 200 members in one particular team where they were investigating various angles, from CCTV footage to interrogating people, also the kind of the ballistic report also they were talking about, and also comparing it with Kalburgi's case. But later we do see at this point in time that the entire team, members of 200, which comprise of 200 members, have now been downsized to 50. Of course, we are given to understand from the sources of the police department, what they're telling us is that it looks like these many number of people, the police officers, have become really redundant. The first reason being, of course, there have been no leads apart from releasing sketches. If you really remember, just last week we did see, of course, SIT team releasing the sketches of 2 suspects as far as this case is concerned. And they have been, as far as that is concerned, remember that they did, of course, interrogate about 220 people, yet there have been no leads. And looks like this is one of the reasons why they have right now downsized to number 50. And that apart, we also hear from the sources from the police department saying that there have been work spending within the stations, and because of which they want officers, especially the police inspectors, to get back to their work, and whenever needed they will be called in back for the investigation, is what they're being told at this point in time.
Yes, stay on with me, Shrija. In fact, let's also play out a reaction that we got from a state minister who's trying to downplay the entire decision to cut down. Let's listen into Ramalinga Reddy.
Earlier 57, we added 64, that is 121. We don't reduce. Okay. We don't reduce. We will add if they need. Okay. No question of coming down.
Okay, thinking up to 50. There is no any question of the
we will add. We don't.
When it is going to be end, sir? Regarding this Gauri Lankesh case, when it is going to be end? This case is going to
wait for some time.
Okay, it will be solved.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's also take a look at what else is making news across the country. Exposing the rift within the Karnataka Congress, 2 factions of the party clashed with each other while welcoming State Chief Minister Siddaramaiah at the Mangaluru airport. Dramatic footage of the incident showed supporters of former Minister Abhay Chandra Jain and MLC Ivan D'Souza heckling each other, even as Siddaramaiah was trying to make way for himself. Angry at police in action, women in UP's Lalitpur took matter in their own hands and thrashed 2 cops with slippers. The citizens alleged that the police was siding with local criminals and shielding them even after they approached the police for help. A case has now been registered against a group of women who thrashed these cops. In an incident of lawlessness, after a policeman injured 3 people in a case of drunken driving, the local citizens took matter in their own hands. The public cornered the cop and stripped and thrashed him. The Madhya Pradesh police has now seized the vehicle and an investigation is underway. 2 people were injured in Kolkata's Bruborn Road after the balcony of a rundown building collapsed. Fire tenders were rushed to the spot for rescue operations, and the 2 injured in the mishap were admitted to a local hospital. The Samajwadi Party chief Akhilesh Yadav has announced that his party will field only 5 candidates in the upcoming Gujarat polls. Akhilesh also added that the Samajwadi Party will support the Congress in the 182 assembly seats in Gujarat. An elderly couple who had claimed to be Dhanush's parents have now filed a complaint with the Madurai Commissioner against the actor. The couple have accused the actor for producing fake documents in the court. Well, as elections in Gujarat loom closer, the fight is heating up. The BJP now faces a bribery charge and is accused of trying to buy leaders of the opposition. The controversy broke out when Narendra Patel, a supporter and a close aide of Hardik Patel, showed cash claiming that the BJP promised him 1 crore rupees. The Congress then sharpened its attack, calling it a sign that the BJP is scared of failure, while the BJP has called all of this a Congress conspiracy to woo partidars, which is coinciding with Rahul Gandhi's visit to the state today.
वो 2-3 दिन से जो चल रहा था मीडिया में ड्रामा और भाजपा में हमारा कुछ कन्वीनर चले गए थे, तो मेरे पर भी ऑफर थी, इसलिए मैंने वो प्रत्यक्ष निहारने के लिए वरुण के साथ में गया और देखा कि भाई क्या है क्या नहीं, और मुझे 1 करोड़ की ऑफर दी। आज 10 लाख रुपया मुझे रोकड़ा दे दिया और कल जो भाजपा का प्रोग्राम है इसमें स्टेज ऊपर मैं आऊँ, उसके बाद दूसरा पैसा कल देने का उसके वायदा किया है। इसलिए मैं समाज को कहता हूँ कि ये पैसा मुझे चाहिए नहीं, मैं पैसे से खरीद सकता नहीं हूँ, खरीदता भी नहीं हूँ।
હવે મને તો કઈ કહી ન શકે, ઇલેક્શન કમિશન ઉપર પસ્તાળ પાડે, ઇલેક્શન કમિશન ઉપર આ ઇલેક્શન કમિશન પર પસ્તાળ પાડનારોને મારે કહેવું છે, જે લોકો ચૂંટણીમાં કાઉન્ટિંગ થઈ ગયું और इस आवाज को ना दबाया जा सकता है, ना खरीदा जा सकता है। जितना भी आप पैसा लगा लें, 1 करोड़ लगाएं, 10 करोड़ लगाएं, 50 करोड़ लगाएं, 1000 करोड़ लगाएं, हिंदुस्तान का पूरा बजट लगा दे, दुनिया का पूरा पैसा लगा दो, गुजरात की आवाज को नहीं खरीदा जा सकता है।